So, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Delphi Economic Forum 24. I am Gerakoudi, Assistant Professor at Deree, the American College of Greece, and I will be the moderator for today's discussion. Thank you for being here. We have the privilege of hearing from our esteemed panelists, each bringing a wealth of experience and expertise to our discussion on perspectives on new energy regulations in shipping. So it is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Kenneth Dam, Director of Global Bunkering at TFG Marine. Kenneth, welcome in Delphi.
Thank you very much.
Please welcome Mr. Dimitris Fafalios, Secretary, Union of Greek Shipowners, President, Fafalios Shipping, Chairman, Intercargo Greece. Welcome, Dimitri. Nice to have you here. Next, a warm welcome to Mr. Stamatis Fradelos, Vice President, Regulatory Affairs, American Bureau of Shipping. Next up, we have Mrs. Helena Athoussaki, Chief Sustainability Officer, Motor Oil Group, Greece. Following her, we will hear from Mr. Vasilis Petousis, Energy and Sustainability Manager, Seanergy Maritime Holdings, Greece. And finally, I will introduce to you Mr. Stylianos Papageorgiou, Managing Director, Lomarlabs, UK. Welcome, Stylianos. So, let's begin our panel discussion. Kenneth, with the tightening regulations on emissions and growing interest in alternative fuels, how do you see the role of bunkering evolving in facilitating the transition to a more sustainable maritime industry?
Thank you very much, Kelly, and thank you very much for having us. It's an impressive place and an impressive audience, so thank you very much. No, your question is super relevant. To take it a little back, Trafigura founded TFG Marine with their partners 4 years ago. They did that around IMO 2020. We knew the importance of bunkering for supporting the core business of our shareholders, which is trading and shipping. So bunkering now becomes super relevant, referring to the former panel. These future fuels, these new regulations will have a big impact on shipping. That means that bunkering will become super relevant, and I think a lot of owners, especially also the Greek owners, will need to focus on the way that bunkering has been viewed in the past. Bunkering in the past has been very closely connected and compared to gasoline stations. That will change. We need to bunker closer to sources. We need to take control over the value chain, and this is the main reason why Trafigura again has taken this a step further, creating a bunker company to determine their own destiny.
How do you think that these new regulations will impact bunker fuel availability and pricing, both in the short and long term?
It will become super volatile. No doubt that greener shipping will become more expensive. The volatility in this element will mean that you need to bunker in new locations. The global bunkering map will change completely. And comparing to what we have seen over the last 2 or 3 decades, that there is a massive change in the locations where you will bunker and how you will actually strategize your bunker operations. Bunker operations today is not digitalized. That's a super important element of what we are trying to change. And I think the mindset of how we create a new bunkering industry with new, young and hungry people that can help us in this greener transition is super important.
Hungry people, interesting. So I wanted to ask about this innovative digital monitoring technology introduced by your organization, and I'm referring to the mass flow meters. What is your objective exactly?
The objective is that if we go into carbon reporting, if we go into emission tracking, the tools we have today is too outdated. We are ullaging vessels based on manual drip sampling, which is not something that we can use for the future. Mass flow meters is the only way that we can digitalize the industry when we go into the next phases of carbon reporting and emission reporting. We need to change everything that we have done from creating it a non-manual process, and mass flow meters is essential. How can we digitalize a process where it's not digitalized the way we basically ullage the volumes and measurements on board the ships?
So you're aiming at transparency and standardization of bunkering operations?
100%. And this is where we see a big change in the bunkering industry, and this is why we have become so large in terms of the services that we are providing on a global scale. We don't see a lot of bunker players being global, have a global presence with an actual incentive in changing the model that we have seen bunkering being done today. So all of the locations where we are basically present today is because we cannot source from the market for our core business, the bunkering for our ships, from the market that we incur. So that's why we created TFG Marine.
Thank you. Great insights, Kenneth. Thank you so much. Now let's hear another perspective. Vasilis, which are the compliance costs connected with the new energy regulations?
So thanks for being hosted here. Thanks for your invitation.
Thank you.
The compliance costs, various ones. First of all, picking up from Kenneth, it's sourcing and purchasing new fuels. Green fuels are in a scarcity, cannot be found easily. They might require route alterations to be able to source them. They require a lot of investment in new technologies on board to be able to consume them, even despite that there are some drop-in fuels that can do so. So there are a lot of costs that are related for the ship owners and for the managers and for everybody on the end of the line. Retrofitting existing infrastructure is quite a significant burden. And the cost that many times we forget is that we have to train our seamen and ourselves to be able to transition into the new age, to comply, to report.
To try and educate them, right?
Exactly, exactly.
And develop them.
Not to even think about the significant amount of investment that's required on the R&D sector, the consultation, the legal fees. So various costs are burdened with this, but we have to do it.
Unavoidably.
We are doing it.
Thank you for sharing your views. Bringing a different perspective now to the table, Helena. Stamatis, what is the present technological readiness of alternative fuel options and emission-reducing technologies? What do you think?
I think a lot of things mentioned by Vasilis previously. So we need to consider, the targets. So currently we have, these high-level targets from the revised strategy. So the first milestone in 2030, we have the 40% reduction of the intensity compared to the 2008. And it's important that the new strategy has also a target for 20% reduction of the absolute emissions. And we need to highlight this because in terms of the carbon intensity, we are doing very well. I mean, this based on the results we have from the fourth IMO study and also the latest DCS data. It seems that we are doing very well. We are almost there. However, we see a problem because our emissions are still increasing, although we have more efficient ships due to the EDI.
Why is that?
It's based on the EDI, modern designs, more efficient engines, larger ships. We have reduced the speed. So these are the parameters highlighted within the study that they have contributed to have better carbon intensity, and we're almost there. The problem is that our emissions are still increasing because we have growth in our business. So this is the challenging part, that target, and we need to do more. So the technologies and the fuels are not ready yet. We are behind. We need to consider also the safety factor, and this is the major objective for our classification societies to work and make sure that all these new technologies and fuels will be safely incorporated within the ship. So we need to do more, and that's why IMO needs to move fast with the mid-term measures and provide incentives. Provide incentives to remove these barriers mentioned previously.
What kind of incentives?
We understand that what we have seen, IMO is moving forward with an economic measure and a technical measure. So the incentives will come through the economical measure. So we're expecting that there will be a carbon pricing and the funds that they are going to raise.
Market-based measures, you mean?
Yes, market-based measures. They will be used to provide incentives. Mainly, we understand that they want to reduce the price difference between the new fuels, with the conventional fuels, and provide, that type of incentives. They are talking about funding research and development, supporting developing countries on infrastructure, because we would need to provide some infrastructure to have these fuels available on specific ports. And this mentioned by Kenneth, we're expecting, the bunkering of these fuels to change. We are going to see in different locations.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Dimitris, what is your opinion?
Thank you, Kelly, and thank you to the Delphi organization. It's a great honor to be here. I'm going to be a little bit more practical here because, regarding the alternative fuels at the moment, only biofuels and LNG are currently available for sale in meaningful quantities. But we've become much better at guessing when the other alternative fuels, and we're going to get better and better every year. So, as a guess, green ammonia, and I stress green, and green hydrogen are probably 10 to 15 years away. Nuclear and battery technology with sufficient energy density are probably 15 to 25 years away. And then, even then, nuclear will suit for larger and high power ships, while the battery technology will be best for the short sea vessels. Mm-hmm. In emission reduction technologies, carbon capture is showing great promise and may even be fully operational on existing ships within 5 years. Other technologies, wind assist, Flettner rotors, air bubble technology, they're already being tried and tested, mm-hmm. and we're doing pretty well.
Which one do you think is more feasible? Which one is more feasible?
There is no single answer. There is no single answer. Every single technology is best suited to a particular type of vessel in a particular type of sector in a particular type of trade. Mm-hmm. So this is very important. What we've become very good at in the shipping industry is we've changed our mindset massively, and we are now very receptive.
More open-minded, you mean?
No, not only open-minded. We have not only become more open-minded, but we have developed systems. And we're developing systems where we can assimilate these alternative fuels and the alternative technologies a lot faster. Mm-hmm. And I think that this was very much shown at the last COP meeting in December in Dubai, where shipping was actually a leader and no longer lagging. So I think that that's very, very positive. We do need to find methodologies to push the shipyards to allow simple vessels, tankers and bulk carriers, which probably make up about 20,000 vessels at the moment. We need to find a way of persuading them to install the dual fuel or the alternative fuel systems and the energy-saving technologies. That's still an area where we have to push harder. And I don't have to say that above all, safety is paramount. Safety of the crew, safety of the vessel, and safety, of course, of the alternative fuels. Thank you.
Excellent, Dimitris. Thank you so much. Helena, you, as a refinery company, how are you preparing to meet the evolving demands for cleaner energy sources?
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you for the organizers to be here. Well, I heard that the challenges that shipping industry has, and sometimes I feel that I'm obliged to actually respond as a fuel supplier, whether we're ready to be able to get this fuels, the future fuels.
So are you ready?
So I think that we're almost ready because we have no choice, first of all. And the way that we do it is that, first of all, we discuss a lot with the partners. And we discuss a lot with our market because it is about competition as well. It's also about, R&D, whether the technology is ready, whether the technology is affordable economically. Because down the line, who is going to pay? The consumer, mm-hmm. the customer, we know that. Now, with what Stamatis said with the ambitious targets and the revised strategy, I think that things are becoming even more difficult to get these targets across. And what we do as a Motor Oil Group is that we invest in heavily into this energy transition, as we call it. Particularly in the marine industry, we are going to invest approximately 2.5 billion in low carbon fuels. We have an emblematic project, we call it BlueMed, and that includes low carbon hydrogen, mm-hmm. and of course synthetic methanol. Actually, we are hoping to become one of the biggest synthetic methanol producers in the region, in Europe actually, which means that, and apart from this, we also are investing in biofuels. And we think that there is enough organic waste, let's put it this way, in Europe to get this demand in place. But that means that it's in Europe. That doesn't mean that it's in Greece, okay? Which means that we need to find a collaborative way to find all this, organic waste. And when I mean organic waste for the biofuels, I mean forestry, I mean livestock, I mean agriculture, used cooking oils.
Edible oils, yes.
Okay, and there are many more that we think that is going to come along the line. On the biodiesel, for instance. So what we have done apart from, our investment sort of strategy is through acquisitions, which is going to be very fast, and at the same time through growth side. I think that for the 2030, we will be ready at least to serve the sort of domestic market, meaning the ferries and the short sea here, particularly to respond to the Fuel EU Maritime, which, as you know, we are also responsible for this regulation, okay? So it's not only on the ship owners. But I will agree with Kenneth about the changing of the bunkering. And I think that it's not only the bunkering, I think the whole industry, how is getting the fuel is going to change. Even the business model of the shipping may actually change, and let's put it this way. And I think what Trafigura is doing is in the right direction, because somebody has to start by looking forward, and then, as Dimitris said, shipping is adopting very quickly because they understand where the train goes, as we say, okay? So I think it's just a matter of, 2-3 years to be able, let's say, to catch up with latest developments.
Great insights, Helena. Thank you so much. Stylianos, how does your company collaborate with the shipping industry stakeholders to ensure that your technology aligns with the regulatory requirements and industry standards?
Sure. So, first of all, we don't own any technology. We're a catalyst, a facilitator for technological change. So we engage with ambitious founders of tech startups that develop technology. We focus on technologies that help decarbonize and automate the shipping industry. And we help bring down walls that keep these technologies from being adopted by the industry. The way we do this is that we offer our fleet of Lomarlabs ships as a floating lab, a testing platform.
For pilot studies, let's say.
For pilot studies, to help these technologies make progress, both in terms of technical readiness, but also in terms of commercial readiness. And this is extremely valuable to the startups, but it's also the best filter we have to assess those technologies, because it puts you in a position to consider if you should even put these things on board and what it would take for you to actually buy them. And of course, we know how to run ships safely, so we advise those startups.
You get feedback
as to what they can and cannot do. But as we move forward with them, we come across questions that are hard to answer for us. So we connect them with industry experts.
Such as?
Regulators, people at classification societies, in flag states, or just independent regulatory experts.
Give me an example of such a question.
An example of such a question. For example.
What is difficult to answer?
It's very typical. So we've had questions around carbon capture, and Mr. Fafalios earlier mentioned that it's going to be 5 years before it's commercially ready. We actually ran a successful pilot, and we're now ready to commercially implement it. But the regulation is not yet there to give incentives to ship owners to commercially use these technologies. So you can invest in the technology works, it captures the carbon, and you get no benefit from the regulation for having done this investment. So what you do, you switch it off and you wait for the regulation to catch up. So what we do as an accelerator, as a catalyst, is that we reach out to all these key organizations. We find the people who know what is the state of the art in terms of regulation, how far they've reached, and we usually find that we are operating beyond that state of the art. So it's then a matter of collaborating with them, both for us to understand what are the future risks.
In alignment, right.
But also to give them information that can be useful at creating future regulations or just making a decision that's currently being debated and lacks some operational feedback.
Thank you so much. Excellent. Vasilis, how these regulations will affect the day-to-day operations of shipping companies?
So, having heard a lot of interesting things, if you wanna comply with the new regulation, your day-to-day operation has to be affected, has to be already affected. Picking up from Kenneth, flow meters and the digitization. So, just to explain our approach. The way we see it is that you have to be a pioneer and to push the limit on getting yourself able to comply. You need to change your everyday approach, meaning that understanding where your consumption are through digital flow meters is something mandatory. Meaning that we have to change the way that we resolve all of our day-to-day operations. Just to add a little bit on what Mr. Fafalios said, our strategy, our understanding, our vision is that except of exploring what has to be done in 20 years, there are a lot of things that can be done today. There are energy-saving technologies that we are pioneering at, such as the very low friction paints, such as measuring and understanding your major consumptions, such as optimizing through AI your vessels, that make a lot of impact, that make a lot of difference. And if you, in a systematic way, examine your options basis that, you create a difference today. So our day-to-day life is totally changed because we believe that by changing it, we get able to comply.
Thank you, Vasilis. Dimitris, do you agree?
Very much so, very much so. And especially for the small companies, which there are a lot of them in Greece, where there's, and especially in the bulk, tramp and oil sector, where the companies are very lean, there's going to be an increase in bureaucracy which is going to be needed to administer the new emissions regulations. And for a small company, you're faced with a dilemma. Am I going to take on somebody for the bureaucracy of the new emissions regulations, or am I going to have somebody for the safety of the vessels and the operation of the vessels and for the good maintenance of the vessels and the good health of the crew? So it is going to have an impact, especially on the smaller organizations. The regulations themselves will actually have a big impact, a greater impact on the ports. And this is the case that we're seeing already with ETS, EU ETS, and fuel EU Maritime, because the port's competitiveness and transshipment will reduce because of the new regulations, and this will change our trade flows. But in the traditional tramp bulk vessels, which don't really have a schedule, we're going to be faced with what Kenneth has talked about, which is the completely different bunkering infrastructure to what we have today. So today we have, for better or for worse, we have a fuel which is very energy dense, but it's available everywhere. And in the future, we're not going to have that, and that's going to change our routing and the decisions made, especially by our charterers. And finally, when we talk about, I think Stamatis talked about the IMO regulations, the life cycle assessments and the well-to-wake certification will just add more bureaucracy to what is already there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Kenneth, how do you anticipate the implementation of new energy regulations will impact commodity trading strategies overall?
I think to sum up a couple of the comments that came from this panel is that we are in a phase where we will see a lot of changes and a lot of transition. So that's the first part. We're looking at a market that will majorly go into two directions. You have the regulatory market, which we cannot change, we need to comply, and then you have the voluntary market. these two markets to some extent will change in the short. So trading systems and trading elements will completely change when we look at the shipping sector. Going in and again looking at the shipping sector, cooperation is the most important part here. Shipping has a tendency, in the past at least, to be very oriented about your own business, and that will simply not work in the future. Trafigura was founded by entrepreneurs, and we want to be entrepreneurs in this specific phase. We are willing to show that this can actually work, and we are doing that by moving ahead with doing it on our own vessels. So again, there is a lot of solutions there. I think there's a lot of solutions where we have not yet seen and explored. And one of the main reasons why we have been successful as TFG Marine is that we are not just going to the market with a solution. We are trying that solution for our own systems to start with, for then putting it out to the market. So I think the market on a trading element and a trading perception will need to change into more cooperation, and that's between ship owners, regulators, voluntary markets, refiners, etc. Or else you will see a more consolidated market where the big players will become even bigger because the cooperation is simply not there.
Thank you, Kenneth. Excellent. Stamatis, I want your comments on the present regulatory uncertainty about the evolving nature of those energy regulations.
Okay, thank you. I think we all agree that there is still a lot of uncertainty. So, we're trying to support, operators to define their strategy, their compliance strategy, and we're still working with a lot of assumptions. We have to do a lot of sensitivity analysis because there are key factors that we do not know. We discussed briefly, we mentioned about the measures coming from IMO, the economical and the technical one. So actually we do not know the carbon price, what will be the carbon price. We know that IMO is going to implement a technical measure which is going to limit the GHG intensity of the fuels we are going to use on the well-to-wake basis. We do not know what will be the limits over the next years, and we do not know what will be the penalties if you are above the limits. And we do not even know what will be these fuels, because we are talking about low carbon fuels, renewable fuels, zero carbon fuels, but actually we do not have a definition of those fuels that will actually be eligible for funding. So these are key parameters we don't know, regulatory aspects, and of course on top of that there are additional parameters like the availability of the fuels, the cost of the fuels, the pros and cons of different technologies, the training requirements, and all these changes we need to do on ship. So for operators that they are looking now to take some decisions and move forward with new design, new buildings, what we just propose is to look into flexibility. Flexibility to create, develop a future-proof ship, that ship when needed to be able to switch to a fuel which will provide a low compliance cost.
Thank you. At which time point do you think that this carbon pricing should take place?
We know that next year, in 2025, we will have the
At which time point of the whole shipping process, I mean?
Yes, we know in 2025.
Who should receive this invoice for carbon pricing? Which party exactly?
Who is going to pay at the end? This has
not the customer, during the operation, I mean.
During the operation.
During the bunkering process.
Possibly we are going to see the same model that we saw with the ETS. Because European Commission has a strong voice in IMO, so we believe that there will be a similar clause for the transfer of the responsibility to the entity who is responsible for the operation of the ship or for the purchase of the fuel. Possibly we are
What do you think, your personal opinion?
I think this will be the case, yes. So in 2025, we are going to have the measures approved, and there will be an extraordinary 1 or 2 day MEPC meeting in order to move forward faster the implementation. So we expect that these measures and the carbon pricing will be enforced by the end of 2027. And we believe that it will possibly include a similar term that these costs will be transferred at the end to the cargo owner and the customer.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Stylianos, what are the challenges in implementing technology solutions to support compliance?
Well, I think, as I mentioned earlier, it's about operating beyond the current regulatory framework. So, as an industry, we're used to innovate by regulation. We sit on the fence until it's mandatory to do something, then we do it. And when faced with the challenge we have in front of us, that at least of decarbonizing the fleet, as we've discussed, it's going to be very difficult to catch the targets that we've set to ourselves as a planet, as a society, but also as an industry, and expect the regulators to first implement requirements for this, and then for us to implement them. And playing all the tricks of delaying implementation of regulation, we're definitely going to overshoot the targets. So I think it's time for us to take charge and go beyond what's required into what's sensible, what's necessary. And when you start doing this, the only way is to work with regulators, to help them and to be helped by them, and to develop things that make good maritime sense, to use the word that was thrown around in the previous panel, naftosini. So when we see technologies that are that resonate with our maritime hearts, and that's the stuff we need to support and help bring onto our ships.
Excellent, Stylianos. Kenneth, how do you assess the readiness of bunkering infrastructure and supply chains to support this green transition?
Not ready at all. So one of the reasons why we have taken charge of our own destiny. Bunkering infrastructure has been similar to what we have been seeing over the last 20 to 30 years. So these new changes and regulatory changes will mean that we need to think bunkering differently. So when we come into the logistics of these new bunker operations, we are seeing a system where we have very old barges, we have very old systems, and we have systems that are not digitalized. So for that to improve, we need to think new and we need to think smart. We need to think in other ways. We need to think about how have we supplied our own fleet for years versus how can we supply each other. There's no saying that you cannot start having bigger ships that carries a various amount of products, because that's also an element that's being discussed too little in shipping. When we start to have these new products coming into play, let's call it methanol, let's call it bio, let's call it something else. Shipping is trading globally. The global trade will not change, and the shipping will need to adjust to the best model where they can bunker. Will that mean that they need a various of products that can mean it's a small amount of gas oil, it's a little very low sulfur, it's potentially also some high sulfur if there's scrubber on board, but also a small amount of potential methanol. So you will see that whole space changing completely, where infrastructure in bunkering will need to rethink what they have been doing before, because no clients in the future will come and ask for one specific product in one port. They will ask for a solution, an energy solution, where it has been a bunker retail solution in the past. So the bunker infrastructure and the bunker logistics are not in place, not at all.
Excellent contribution, Ken. Thank you. Helena, what out-of-the-box partnerships could emerge between shipping industry and unconventional energy pioneers?
If you don't mind, I would like to talk more about the regulation, and I will just try to include also the partnership. First of all, I mean, as the previous speaker said, this partnership is very important. Otherwise, you cannot do anything. The reason I want to combine it with the regulation is because for those that know me, I love regulations, in particular anything to do with decarbonizations. Since, I don't know, 10 years ago and more than that, Stamatis knows that better than me. I was advocating for the ETS. I was advocating for the carbon pricing, particularly because it was a time where the aviation was coming in, and of course the land-based industry. Now we are in the phase where we have to pay from zero emissions. But in any case, what happens when there is a regulation is there's a shake. Okay, so everybody starts changing. Everybody starts thinking about new strategy, new pricing, new competition, new consumer, let's say, reaction. So that's why I like sometimes the regulation. This is what's happening now. Because of the regulation, okay, we have this forum and this type of discussions. So because of the regulation, the IMO now is trying to, to catch up, let's say, with what's happening. The bunkering industry, the fuel suppliers, the shipping industry as well, okay? And we have no other choice but coming together and start trying to finding a solution. But that has to happen across the world. And this is where IMO has a very big responsibility, because otherwise we're going to lose this competitiveness. Because if Europe actually is putting pressure on the regulation side, then fuel suppliers like us, that we are in Greece, for instance, will be out of competition, because shipping, particularly in the shipping market, okay, is a global. So I think that what needs to happen is that we need to bring this type of regulations as sooner as possible and trying, let's say, to find some sort of solution around all the different partners, okay? Maybe to standardize the fuels, right, that the shipping is going to use now better than later, and before, let's say, the bunkering project start, being created, because when you do a bunkering project, you need to understand what type of fuels you're going to have. So it's better now if the industry comes and sort of decide what are the best ones in order for the fuel suppliers to start investing. The R&D even industry start looking, because now the R&D industry is looking everything, okay, and everybody's getting confused. And then at the same time trying the shipping industry to talk with the shipyards to start preparing the ships and start getting the orders. At this stage, there is no common strategy for all of us, okay, and this is what needs to happen in the future.
Excellent, thank you. Kenneth, how compliance with the new energy regulations will impact your competitiveness?
Only to the better, we believe. This whole volatility and this market that we are seeing in terms of changes and the range of products that we will see will make us more competitive in terms of being able to handle it. So I don't think that we will see the market consolidating, having this view. I agree with you on a personal note, but I don't think it will happen. That's why I think we need to be ready for everything. We really need to cater for all of the different solutions that will be out there, because that will be the new market. The new market will change completely, and again, we need to cater for all of the solutions.
Thank you. So a big thank you to each of our panelists for sharing their expertise and engaging in this discussion. I would also like to emphasize the importance of the educational programs offered by Deree, the American College of Greece, shaping future leaders in the shipping industry. So let us carry forward the lessons learned today and drive innovation and excellence in shipping management. Thank you all once again for your participation.